It has been a while since I did a Black Excellence video. Today we are looking at the talented scientist and NASA engineer from the motherland, Ghana to be precise. So I'll read a short bio of the inspiring man and show you a few of his work in his own words. Dr. Ashite Trebi Olenu, henceforth Dr. Elenu, is a Ghanaian robotics engineering scientist. He is currently in the United States working as a robotics engineer at NASA and is the leader of a team that designs robots for NASA missions. Dr. Olenu was born in Accra, Ghana, and had his secondary education at the Ghana Secondary Technical School in Takoradi. He went to university at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, what we call KNUST. He left KNUST for England after a year, following the political crisis that followed the Jerry Rawlings military coup in Ghana. He had his bachelor's in engineering with specialization in avionics at Queen Mary College, University of London in 1991. He had his PhD in control systems engineering from the School of Engineering and Applied Science, Royal Military College of Science, Cranfield University in the United Kingdom in 1996. He was the leader of the team that designed the Mars rover robot that landed on the Red Planet. He worked on the Phoenix spacecraft that found water on Mars. He's currently working on robots for the InSight mission to Mars. In 2011, Dr. Olenu formed the Ghana Robotics Academy Foundation, a non-profit volunteer organization dedicated to motivating and inspiring the next generation of Ghanaians' interest in participation in science and technology. He regularly visits Ghana to see his family and to push for better STEM education in the country. In his own words,
my dream as a boy was basically at the era of what we call the glass cockpit, where we were having autopilots trying to take humans from the cockpit basically, and that's what fascinated me as a boy. So I was really interested in making planes fly themselves. So I came to England and I went to Queen Mary College. I did avionics and I did my PhD at Cranfield Royal Military College of Science, and all I was interested in designing autopilots, making things autonomous. So I wasn't planning to, it was my great plan to go to NASA and get robots to be autonomous. It just happens. But I'm doing what I really enjoy doing, autonomy, basically. So I don't really care whether it's applied to robots or it's applied to vehicles or anything, so long as it's autonomous. I'm just something that interests me greatly. People are always fascinated by space research, and I think the fundamental question they tend to ask is, like curiosity costs $2.5 billion. And if they look at the suffering in the world, why do you spend $2.5 billion in space exploration whilst you can save? And it's a very emotional question, but the fact is that we don't take $2.5 million, pack it in the suitcase, and put it in the rocket and shoot it up to Mars. We do use it. We do use the money right here on Earth to develop technologies that are very important. And I think for the Wellcome Trust, for example, if you look at Ebola, most people don't know that space technology is at the forefront of Ebola, the fight against Ebola. If you look at the epidemiology that has been done, just the spread of the virus, how do you think they get that data? How do you think who has been able to model the spread of the disease, to be able to stop it, to be able to predict where it's going to go and build from? Space technology. People are making phone calls. They have cell phones. It's telling them where the disease is happening in real time. This is space technology. In the most remotest part of the world, you go there, there's no drinking water, but they have a cell phone. How do you think that happens? Space technology. We have immunization in very remote places where there's no refrigeration. How do we get the medicines there? We have phase change materials that were developed through the space program. So I can keep going on and on that. And I think in most of my interviews in the developing world, I always say this, that the developing world benefits disproportionately with respect to the investment that they make in space, which is zero. Even to win the lottery, you just have to buy a ticket. But here, they don't even buy a ticket and they're winners. So it benefits mankind. And I think that's the message you want to send, that money is not being spent for the frivolously. It's being spent to make life better on Earth. So most folks are always fascinated about driving on Mars, and they say, "Do you joystick your robot on Mars?" The answer to that is no. It's at the closest point. It takes 5 minutes to send a signal from here to the rover, right? By the time it gets to the rover and finishes driving, it sends it back. You might have driven it to a rock or something. What we actually do is we do what parents do with their kids. If you're a teenager, when I was a teenager, I remember my mom, we wake up and my mom has a list of chores that I have to do, right? You got to wake up, you got to eat at this time, you got to take your siesta, which we never did. You got to have your snack and your tea. So that's what we do to the rover. We tell the rover on a daily basis, we give it a list of things. We program it and say, wake up at 8 o'clock. When you wake up, take a picture of this rock, drive there, do this, and at 1 p.m., there'll be a satellite coming overhead. Gather all your data and ship it to the satellite. And that's how we drive the rover. So we give it a list of chores. The rover is semi-autonomous. It's like a very good teenager. We designed the rovers to be autonomous. But when we talk about autonomy, we talk about safety, right? So we've designed and tested the robot in such a way that we know the robot is not going to kill itself. If I ask the robot to drive over a cliff, I can assure you the rover will not drive over the cliff because we have got safeguards. So there are safety measures that we put in it. Are there sequencing errors? Yes, there are sequencing errors that can lead to, but we do try to catch those on the ground, and we do set up the robot so that it doesn't do anything silly. It's very humbling to be one of the first to be able to dig eyes on another planet. I guess on the Phoenix mission, where we had a robotic arm and a lander that was landed on the North Pole of Mars, where we have ice caps. A group of us were the first people to be able to do that on Mars, to dig ice and to examine it and to put it in instruments for scientists to analyze them. So I think that has been something very, very humbling. And driving the rovers to Spirit Opportunity on Mars for 5 years, I think it was a highlight of my career. But I think there are more to come. Right now, I'm working on the InSight mission. I'm the lead for the robotic arm, what we call the instrument deployment system. And to be the first time we deploy an instrument on another planet, we're going to deploy a seismometer and we're going to deploy a heat probe. So that's also going to be very interesting. But I don't think one looks as if at the things that one does to say I think we're advancing the knowledge of mankind. That's the most interesting part. But whatever we do is advancing human knowledge. It's also developing technologies that would help people on Earth. And that's what excites us. Robots are everywhere. You go under the sea, there are robots. On the surface of the earth, there are robots. In your house, there are robots. In space, there are robots. My name is Dr. Ashtik Trebi Oladin, and I work at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. These are the 5 robotics technologies that are going to change the world. The first robot is RoboSimian, which is a robot with multiple limbs. You can think of it as arms or legs. It's designed for rescue missions. So where there's fire or there's an accident, a chemical spill or a nuclear accident, RoboSimian will go in there and it can basically clean up. You can reconfigure RoboSimian for any job, and it's a very exciting robotics technology. The next robot is Ada, which is a 3D printed robotic hand. 3D printing is going to transform the way we think about manufacturing. You can go into your computer, you can design anything, and you can push a button and make it. We have the Ada robotic arm. It's one of the most dexterous arms around. It's all 3D printed. So in a few years, you can build your own and print your own robots in your bedroom. Phoenix is a powered exoskeleton. It comes in and assists you to be able to do things that you cannot do on your own. If they can wear an exoskeleton that is powered, you'll be able to lift a huge object. Also, it could be very useful for people that are disabled in terms of mobility. So I think that is going to get humans to evolve into what? A hybrid of robots and humans. The next robot is Pepper, which is a humanoid with emotional intelligence. A robot should be able to sense its environment. Once it senses its environment, it should be able to think about its environment, basically computation. Then, thirdly, it has to take action. For service robots, there's a fourth dimension that is missing, and that is empathy. And this is where Pepper comes in. It's got emotional intelligence, and that is going to change the way we interact with robots and how robots can be used in the household. The last robot is the Curiosity Mars rover, and I've been very fortunate to work on a lot of Mars rovers. The challenge there is to take the science instrument that basically fills a room on Earth, and then we shrink them into shoeboxes to be able to launch to different planets. One of the robotic system on the rover is what we call the robotic arm. I've worked on all the robotic arms that have been to Mars. Basically, a human arm, right? So it's got upper arm, it's got a shoulder, it's got an elbow, it's got a wrist. And you wouldn't believe it, but Curiosity only uses 120 watts for power. So if we bring that technology to Earth, you can see that in remote areas around this world, we'll be able to have really complicated medical instruments that will use very little power and be able to accomplish a lot. Take 5. The InSight project is unlike any other Mars mission. Okay, so far when we go to Mars, we do what we try to do surface history. We go around, drive around, look at the rocks, look at the soil, look at the history. We look at what is right in front of us. And I call that kind of investigation. It's like you go to a crime scene, right? And you see broken bottles, you see blood everywhere. You just kind of Inspector Morse, and then you're trying to recreate, go back in time. Okay, see, this is what it is now. What is it? What was it before? InSight is very different. InSight, we're delving deeper into the surface of Mars. Okay, and we're literally giving Mars a medical checkup. Okay, so what do you do for a medical checkup? When we go to the doctor takes our what? Vital signs. What are our vital signs? He takes what? Do we have a pulse? We're going to take the pulse of Mars. That's Mars the pulse. And how do we answer that? We use seismology. So we're going to put a seismometer on the ground, which is built by Canes and Imperial College in Oxford. So actually, there's a UK component to this, where the seismometer has two components. It's got what we call a very broadband seismometer that is built by the French, Canes, and then the short period is built by Imperial, and the electronics is built by Oxford. So that's how we're going to measure to see whether it's got a pulse. The second thing that you do when you go to a physician for a medical checkup, they take your what? Temperature. We're going to take the temperature of Mars. So what we have is a heat probe, a self-hammering nail. It's going to nail itself to up to about 5 meters in the ground. It's built by the German space agency, the DLR. And it's going to hammer itself all the way up to 5 meters to the ground, and it's going to have a trailing tether with a lot of thermocouples. Basically, a thermocouple is something that measures temperature. So once it gets to its destination, it's going to stop, and it's going to take the temperature of Mars for a year. Okay. Then we go to a doctor. What do they check? They check our reflexes. They take this funny hammer and they hit you on the wrist or something to see how you reflex. So we're going to do that as well, where we use the RISE instrument to be able to figure how Mars reflexes, how Mars wobbles around its axis, and be able to know the shape of Mars. So InSight is answering one of the most fundamental questions in the solar system, right? Or planetary geology. How do the inner planets, the rocky planets, how do they get formed? What processes kind of create these rocky planets? So InSight is looking for what I'll say the fingerprints of the processes of how rocky planets are formed. So one of the places that I think will be very, very interesting for us to explore is the oceans of Titan. And I think, having these immersible vehicles that we can build that can go into these deep oceans and be able to stay there for years and be able to navigate and collect some fascinating data, I think, to me, is the holy grail of robotic exploration of space. I think we know a lot more about space than we know about our oceans, surprisingly. But there's so much. But I think with the technology that we're developing here on Earth to explore our oceans, those technologies will be applicable to explore Titan as well. And actually going to Titan will also help us become better technology to explore our oceans on Earth as well.
But we know that you still are trying to help young ones as yourself who may not have the opportunity back home to acquire some experience. Tell us about that.
So we're a few of us, we formed the Ghana Robotics Academic Foundation, and the goal of the foundation is to connect science theory to practice. And the best way for us to do that is we started a program called the Robotics Inspired Science Education, and the key is robotics inspired. We want to do science education, but we want to use robots. Because if I go and tell a kid, let's go do some chemistry experiments, they're not going to show up.
It will not make any sense to them, actually.
But when I say, let's go build robots, they're going to show up. So we take the basic theories of science that they do in school, reflection of light, and we tell them how you can use it in real world application. And that we've been doing for the past 5 years. We've reached thousands of students. We are across the country. We are in all 10 regions. So we do this competition every year. We've sent kids abroad to do competition in the World Robotic Olympiad. We've been going for the past 3 years. And Prempeh did really well last year.
Prempeh College.
Prempeh College
did,
yes. They went in the semifinals of one of the open competition. And we've gone with Bray Girls. We've gone with schools from all over the country. And we want to expose Ghanaian kids to this type of technology, and also to build their confidence that they can operate at the world stage. And when we usually take these kids, we all use the same platform. And they do better than teams from Germany and other Western countries. And they're always surprised because they say, wow, so we know more than, we do really know more.
So in conclusion, we need to elevate our scientists like other communities do theirs. I have no problem with musicians and sports personalities, but I think people like Dr. Olenu need more spotlight in our minds so that our children have diverse role models to look up to. He is a giant, not just in our community, but globally. Looking at videos of Dr. Olenu on YouTube, I realized that most of them were not even up to 1,000 views. Some were even less than 500 views. I don't know how this video will do, but I sure hope we will share it as much as possible so that we get millions of views, or at least half the number of a Nicki Minaj or a Young Thug video. Role models matter, and we need more role models like Dr. Olenu. Enjoy and remember to share this video. If you are a parent, I encourage you to download it and regularly show it to your children. Have a great day.